Так, дорогие друзья, извините.
Dear friends, I would like to apologize for a short delay. My name is Alexander Muratov, and I'm partner of the Strelka Design Institute. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this conference, which is entitled Comfortable Urban Environment: How can we implement and scale up standards for the city beautification? Today we will be speaking about the comfortable urban environment and about what kind of effects cities can get from that. And since we are in the city of Moscow, obviously, and this is Moscow Urban Forum, here the focus of our discussion will be the issue of how and why Moscow's experience could be valuable for the rest of Russia, what can be taken, what can be accounted for. And here we have a great panel. And I would say that these are the real stars of the urban development. These are the people who are now transforming our towns and cities. First, I introduce to you Pyotr Biryukov, the vice mayor of Moscow, the deputy of the Moscow mayor for the issue of the urban improvement and public and utility services. Let's welcome Peter. Andrei Chibisov, the Deputy Minister of the Russian Federation, supervising the issues of utilities, public utilities construction service, and he is the head of the national project entitled Comfortable Urban Environment. Alexandra Sitnikova, partner of the Strelka Design Bureau. She is the supervisor of the project My Street. Evgenia Murines, the deputy CEO of the Institute of Housing Development. And Evgenia, on a separate note, I would like to say that she has got a special reward and the title of the Assistant to the President of the Union of Russian Architects. And let's congratulate her with this achievement, with this appointment. Dmitry Tepin, the Minister of Construction and Public Sector of the Saratov region of Russia. Sergei Brinov, the head of the Department of Urbanism and Land Administration of the city of Orenburg. Alexander Loshkin, the counselor of the mayor of the city of Novosibirsk for the issues of architecture and urbanism. And last but not least, Natalia Fishman, assistant to the president of the Republic Tatarstan. And if we'll think back and remember when the national project for building comfortable urban environment was launched, much had been mentioned that now we need to share the Moscow experience in the Russian regions. And even at the same pavilion a couple of years ago, Dmitry Medvedev, the Prime Minister, has been speaking about that in the September of the last year at the All-Russian Forum of the Local Self-Government. And of course, what Moscow is doing, what Moscow has been doing in the last 5 to 6 years, since the year 2011, it's affecting everyone. I guess it's an issue of parks beautification. This is how we started to improve the Moscow landscape in such a landmark project as Klinsky Embankment, Bolshaya Dmitrovka Street, Pokrovka Street, and then the most landmark project of the last 5 years when it comes to improving quality of the urban environment. This would be My Street project, which is headed by Peter Biryukov, and where we as the Strelka Design Bureau are taking a very proactive role. Much has been done already. Over 100 streets have been improved in 2015 and 16. This would be about 130 kilometers of the road surface and the walkways. About 70,000 trees have been planted, 6,000 lighting poles have been installed, and the scale and scope is really striking one's imagination. Also, what is important, that a standard for the public spaces improvement has been issued, which is enabling us to do the works on such a scope and on a quite high level of quality. And this year, Russian Federation has, in 2016 actually, it has launched the national project Building Comfortable Urban Environment. It's with a federal financing of about 25 billion Russian rubles, which is comparable with the budget of the My Street project. Also, there are many initiatives attached to this project, namely joint initiatives of the National Institute of the Housing Development, and the Strelka Design Bureau is also developing standards, although somewhat different standards of the integrated territory development. We're improving the public spaces in the regions of Russia as a part of getting ready for the World Soccer Championship. We have launched a program of improving the mono cities, landscapes. There is a lot of new things going on, very curious things, and life is bright as never before. So let us share and exchange the experience. Peter, I would like to give you the floor. Dear colleagues, if we're speaking about this large-scale project that Moscow is exhibiting today, we have to point out that we first engaged in this topic very proactively since the year 2011. Back in 2010, at the end, Sergei Sobyanin, the mayor of Moscow, who only assumed this position, he identified the main priority task that Moscow should be comfortable, convenient for living, both for those who live in Moscow and those who come to visit Moscow. And this task is being implemented. First, we launched My Courtyard program. We began to work with the parks and improving the parks. We have assumed the challenge that we have to be the significant or important public spaces in the city. We realized that we need many more parks than what we used to have before. We have made up our mind that we need some methodology of working on a number of these initiatives. If we are speaking about the program that we are referring to as My Street program in Moscow, then we can talk about it later. But first we begin by defining what kind of courtyards have to be improved. We asked the Muscovites to speak up their mind about what to do with improving these territories. And in the last 6 years, each Moscow yard has been renovated according to the new standards. The new standards include playground and complexes, the leisure areas for the people of all age groups. This would be the pedestrian walkways and pathways, parking spaces. This would be the level of the lighting, additional level of lighting at all territories, at the children's playgrounds. This would be a connection to the bigger areas such as public spaces and recreational zones. And in these programs we also have such solutions as building additional greenery and green spaces. While back in 2010 we had about 130 parks in the city, organized parks. But with the low level of visits and comforts in these parks, then today we have 436 such park and recreation spaces in the city of Moscow. In this year alone, we have improved 128 of them. These territories, which had been suggested by Muscovite, the residents of Moscow themselves, we have announced about these programs, and the Muscovites have told us where they would like to see what park. Sergei Brinyov, I'm sorry. We've done a lot, and in terms of improving and doing the landscape of our streets. So slowly we moved from one program to the other. We eventually ended up at the program My Street. Back in 2013, having consulted the residents of Moscow, we got the feedback of what they would like to see on either street, what kind of landscape elements they want to see. And on stage one in about 2012, back then we've done only one venue in the center of Moscow. This would be the part of the Kuznetsky Most and Petrovka Street, Stoleshnikov side street, Kamergersky side street. There were 5 streets, but this year our program is about 5-fold bigger than the program of the first year. Now, 118 streets, this will be 89 major venues are in the progress. We have launched the work ahead of the schedule in this year, back in March of 2017. We've done engineering, utilities, communications, and we're saying to Muscovites that basically all the works will be completed in August. And right at this stage, we have put into operation Yakimansky embankment, which is a continuation of the Krymsky embankment, Golutvinsky side street as well. The new square, we have beautified it, and we are going to deliver certain venues one by one. This year, we also are going to improve the Garden Ring, Boulevard Ring, Kremlin Ring. We're also going to complete the works on the Pushkin Square, all the way to Tverskaya Zastava Square. By the way, Tverskaya Zastava Square will, from the transportation hub and from the parking area, will be transformed into the big public space, big public areas. There'll be historic pavilions de-installed. There'll be a tram line which had been running from long time from Novoslobodskaya to Ploshchad Tverskoy Zastavy. This tram will help people to commute across the city. And today, we've defined tasks and challenges so that by the end of the current year, we would have not 202 renovated streets, but 320 such streets. As for the public spaces, from 220 kilometers, it will be about 300 kilometers of renovated space. What renovated streets may look like? First of all, it's about building comfort for passengers. Our main statement is that we are moving from the street dedicated to the transportation to the pedestrian-oriented and friendly street. We want to expand the sidewalks. We want to decrease the driveways to the standard values, and the streets will be expanded in some cases 5, 7, 10 meters. This could be the Nikolskaya Street, and this could be Dmitrovka partially, Bronne Street, and others. They'll be partially closed, many of them. And we're doing the same this year. One example from the last year, when from Mokovaya to Pushkinskaya Street, we've made Tverskaya Street, or the new Arbat, or the part of the Garden Ring in the last year, 3.6 kilometers. And this year, about 13 kilometers. The work will be completed, and the second main goal is to restore historic justice. That is restoring facades on the building. Facades on the buildings along the streets will be renovated, about 2,000 facades. As a part of this program, in 5 years have been renovated, restored. About 700 facades have been given their historic look on the specially protected buildings, which are the memorial, historic memorial, like the way they looked about 100 years ago when the buildings were first built. Next challenge is arranging historic and cultural lighting system. Back then we had about 150 architectural lighting. Today we have about 2,000 buildings in Moscow. We know that Moscow is really beautiful. It looks beautiful in the last 4 years during the Christmas holidays and New Year's holidays. There is a special lighting which is turned on from the November 1st to April 1st during the winter season. We're going to continue this. And also, this type of architectural street lighting is really making our city brighter. We are saying that this year I want to unveil the mystery. We've done some landscape lighting on Vorobyov Hills from one part of the third transportation ring along the Luzhniki, all the way to the other part. For the day of the city, such lighting will be implemented. We will also do the landscape lighting on the Boulevard Ring, the repairs of which will be completed soon. These are the landmark venues where we are working every day. And while working at these venues and facilities, we're saying that the history of Moscow, of the city, should be established for the future generations. We are doing large-scale operations to improve the number of streets. We're doing the architectural excavations. Now, we first let archaeologists to do the excavations and then to work on each street. Last year, about 7,000 different artifacts have been discovered and placed in museums. And this year, we are setting a new goal of setting this kind of window shops and the places where the Muscovites and the guests could see what had been hidden under the ground. We're also working on issues of artificial lighting, like I said, architectural lighting. We are returning the historic lamp stands and light posts with modern technologies. We will do all of that by types and by categories. Before 2010, in the city, there were about 1,000 different lamp and light posts and light fixtures. It was difficult to operate, but today we are coming to the point that we want to see a certain number of these light fixtures. And speaking about the city beautification, we need to say that we have over 3,000 streets in Moscow. Streets in the downtown, in the center, and to make all the streets by one design would simply not be possible. And now I want to say something about the new things. Moscow is one of the few cities in the world which is doing the work of such a scale. There is no other big megapolis in the world, and this has been the focus of our plenary session. And the ex-mayor of the City of London was saying that today Moscow is ahead of all other capitals in terms of scale of works for doing the urban development. And while some certain urbanists are saying, let's make this small street and it'll be fine. No, first of all, we do it not only to make it more beautiful, but to make it more comfortable, more comfy, and more pleasurable all across Moscow. This is our main challenge. We want to make environment safer. Today, when we're strolling across the city, we say that you have to be absolutely confident in your own personal safety. We do not use the one cookie cutter scheme. We have developed standards. Standards for landscaping, improvement of the streets, of the internal courts and yards, water, green territories, squares by the metros, and other socially significant spaces. And these standards will help us to apply them in designing units. And just one example, you probably are seeing lately that we are using the street tile, the granite-made tile and pavement, and we put it the certain elements. We do it as we're doing as the certain constructor. The designers are thinking what kind of the tilt and the angles, and all of this is prefabricated. The Alexei mentioned the question about the Moscow. Yes, we're working in Moscow. And Andrei will confirm. We're thinking about how to apply this experience for all across Russia. We're thinking about how to create new jobs. And again, going back to our plenary session, it has been mentioned that about 3.5 million jobs nationwide have been established so that people could supply foodstuffs in Moscow, sell them in Moscow, build something, build units, build items, equipment, building materials, and in such a way Moscow is consuming a lot and is creating jobs for many people in the region. So I would like to give you one example for the My Street program. Back in 2010, all the national industry produced about 100 kilometers of the granite pavements. This would be the companies from Bashkortostan, Karelia, and about the outdoor tiles, about 100,000. And this year, only Moscow will get from the Russian companies, and only Russian companies, 600 kilometers of the granite curb, and about 1 million meters of the granite tile. Once again, I'll say that companies who are working in Urals and Bashkiria are alive, people are working and paying taxes. And we want to put these street pavements and cobbles. We are ensuring you it will serve at least 70 to 80 years. Moscow has never known such changes and such a large-scale works for the landscaping. Even back in 1930s, preparing for the 22nd Olympic Games have not been such big. Only certain aspects have been renovated, and now we are affecting the whole city. We have been working very intensively, and now I'll say again that in August or September we will complete these works. 150,000 people are working on improving the Moscow's landscape. And when we talk about standards, of course, you can apply certain standards, and our colleagues and our partners from the Strelka Design Bureau, along with us, have been doing this work from day one. We are very grateful. Their creative potential is unlimited, and today they're helping us all over Russia to transform it. They are transforming our experience, our capabilities, and using it all over Russia. The second, the second question, let me say, please help other regions. And Moscow, when growing its economy, when attracting investments, is contributing to the all-Russian budget 1,060 billion Russian rubles.
And sometimes it's even more. And 80% of the Russian investments going to the regions make the sum which Moscow gives to the Russian national state budget. So, the richer Moscow is going to be, the more investments go to Moscow, the richer the country will be. We are developing Moscow agglomeration for that, and that will benefit for the regional development as well. So thus, we are developing together with you, my dear colleagues, and thus we love Moscow and going on loving it. Another question is when this program will be over, and the answer is no, never, because yes, we love our city, and we work for the sake of Moscow always. Thank you, Piotr, very much for having answered the majority of questions. Let me just add something. The Confederation Cup has recently come to its end, and there were a lot of international teams here in Moscow. And in the very last night, the member of Mexican team came to see me, and he said, "Thank you for this beautiful Moscow. It doesn't matter for me whether we win or lose, but we'll go to the restaurant on Dmitrievka." They lost the game, but they went to the restaurant, and they still loved our Moscow. Let me ask kind of a personal question. So you see that the scales are great, the volumes are great, but is there any favorite place or project for you which has been made in recent 5 years? I can answer. If you're a dad, you'll never say which child you love most of all, because all the projects are really beloved by me because they have our efforts and our souls, of our mayor, of me, and of you. And each object, each facility is really dear to any Muscovite and will love our city and each project. Piotr has stated a lot concerning the history of Moscow, and he said that Moscow started in the yards. And you remember that about 20 billion rubles of 200 were allocated to the yards in the state program you started last year. So did you consider this experience starting for smaller yards and then scaling this initiative? Well, thank you very much for this interesting question. Yesterday, during the plenary, we also specified that all the processes are intercorrelated. We've already finished the discussion whether it's good or bad. It is good, certainly. Let me only say why this project has become a priority for the whole country. We can see how Moscow has changed. We have a breakthrough, and the Muscovites and the guests, no one can just not but like it. It's evident that the Moscow has become much more comfortable to live here. And when we started it, it was one thing, but now much more people want to be a Muscovite, even those who initially wanted to live it after finalizing some projects of those. Moscow has become comfortable, and comfortable environment is a matter of competition for the human resources. And due to the surveys which have been conducted, the environment, the comfortable environment, is one of the key factors. Job is important, but the person can only live his job, and he or she should be comfortable not only the place where he or she works, but around the place of job. You need to go for a walk with your kids somewhere. You need to go around. You need to be able to go somewhere, and this is most important, providing the interests of different actors, different participants of the urban community. This is important. And in the new world of the technological breakthrough of the digital world, we've got to develop the Russian economy this way, and this is why this project has become so cool for the skate. Speaking about the yards, Moscow hasn't become big and good and comfortable at once. And for many Muscovites, and especially for aged people, their yards are most important. Some people cannot go away because they're too old sometimes, and the yard is most important for aging people. That's why moms with small kids, again, they need some places where to go for a walk with their kids, and that is why it is really significant that so much money goes to the yards. And thanks to this project, we'll get minimally 13,000 yards, comfortable, renovated, and beautiful. Is it good or bad? Is it little or is it a lot? I think it's good anyway, and it's a good start. What is especially important here. Not only that we make the yards comfortable the way we, the government, want, we take into consideration the point of view of the Muscovites, of those who live there. And it is important, really. Yesterday, Dmitry Kazak, who is responsible for our project, stated during the plenary that this year 42 billion rubles will spend for this project. And this is for the first time ever. Such a huge sum of money never went to the yards for things like that. But it is a good example and it's good practice. And it will be a good experience, really. There are difficulties too. And this is the status quo. And we need to do so as the best experience of the best cities and towns of our country is scaled and implied everywhere. About once a week, my minister sends me to some territories, and I'm still responsible for housing, and now I'm also responsible for the city environment, and this is great, really. And some people say, Moscow is Moscow, they have a lot of money. Let me explain this thing once again. Each and every city and town, irrespectively how much money you have, but if you try to go targeted way, you can improve the city, you can improve the environment. Certainly you don't have resources like in Moscow, but cities and towns always have different conditions. Moscow is the capital of Russia, and it has to be the face of the country. So we've started fulfilling this task. So together with the ministry, we control and monitor this project and all the objects, and it is especially important. We've only started this project. It's only our first year, but the jobs and the works have started already. And this is what I can see every day. And most significant thing is that each and every project is discussed with the Muscovites, with those who live there. Well, we don't have much time to do it for a long time, but still we do it. There is a good project in Domodedovo. For instance, yesterday, new yards, new beautifully renovated yards were set up. So the target of each and every governor, each and every manager, to go on like this. And you know who we have there? Young people, young architects, and even university graduates. For the first time, they've started to be involved in the job of changing the face of their beloved city or town. And it is so good that people who are responsible for housing, for water supply, for gas supply, they also now see their own city and town differently, providing Moscow being an example of that. We monitor everything, all the startups, including the projects fulfilled by Strelka. And to each and every project, we need detailed approach. And we need to have a very targeted approach to what particularly we do in what city in what town, but already today in 13,000 municipal institutions, specific jobs are set up and are being implemented. Let me highlight the role of businesses there. When we started the project, in the decree of the government, we stated that each municipal authority should have a platform for discussion, and the governor or the mayor should be the head of this project for discussion. This platform should have representatives of all the top conductors, the government, the businesses, and people, because any project we launch should live. So we launch it, but there are good and bad examples. For instance, Rostovskaya Oblast has great river benches and great parks. They were launched, but you know, they have life, they live, thanks to businesses as well. So our target is that the projects, platforms, facilities we make live, as it is in Moscow. There are also negative examples when we have huge money from the budget, and money goes and nothing is created. And this is bad. There are even supervisors, some officials who say, we don't need any recreation zones here. We don't want to do it. But they have money, and the money doesn't work. No one goes around the city because there are no facilities for the comfortable living and comfortable recreation. So what is most important here? Discussion, number one. Number two, taking decision by this kind of commissions or platforms for discussion where there are representatives of the authorities, businesses, and people, because these are people who work and who want to make their city more comfortable. And so let me conclude that this project is important for Moscow, for those who work there in other cities and towns, and it should be the project of their life. If it is like this, each of us who is responsible for one direction then changes his or her position, the process doesn't stop. And when our kids will ask us, my dad, my mom, what have you done for me to live comfortably? And we'll show them, this is your city and town, so let us make it so that our kids are proud of us. And this is especially important. President Putin also highlighted this project, and the government also pays special attention to this project. And our target is that our people, those people who can change our country, change our economy, improve it in accordance with the best examples, and I'm sure that will be a success in it. Thank you very much. Let's go on, trying to be efficient, not only fast, and I would like to listen to two great colleagues having both Moscow and regional experience, having a lot of skills and experience of the environment, how it is developed in Moscow and in regions. Alexandra Sitnikova and Natalia Fishman, the floor is yours. Could you please compare these experiences? Who would like to be the first? Alexandra, great. I like my geographical position on the podium now between Moscow and the regions, because my colleague from Moscow sitting on my right hand side, and my colleague from the region is sitting on my left hand side. And let me agree with you that the human resource, the human capital, is #1 resources of ours. Let me say a few words. Trying not to repeat what already has been said. These are the standards for improving of Moscow streets. There were basic types of streets, then hubs and technical requirement. And this has eased our work to a huge extent. It became clear that the standard is efficient and it works, and this was accepted and taken and approved by the Moscow city government. And then we scale this document to improving the environment and recreational objects. These are the standards for parks, squares, yards, and we've discussed the yards a lot today, and also facilities for social infrastructure. The structure of the documents is the same. So #1 is the type and the definition of the object, then the information, targets, and ways to set this target and to reach this target. This is how we do, actually, and these are the projects we were really happy to participate in. We started all that in the year 2015, when Strelka started, and it was our pilot project, Rождественка Street. And which picture do you like better? On the right, or on the left-hand side? It's obvious, right? Neglina Street was also our beginning, and the citizens felt some different and special atmosphere. Novaya Arbat Street. Can you see the difference? We have trees. Tverskaya Street is also a very representative example. So this picture was taken at 5 a.m., and that is why there are not so many cars. You know, it's not just a highway any longer, it's just a street which works in accordance to new principles. There are trees, new balances, so that the citizens feel comfortable. The trees do not only improve the atmosphere, they are like scaling, and you feel more protected. This is the garden ring, how it looks now, and the parts of the Smolenskaya Square, which was renovated last year. So you can compare the Smolensky Boulevard, and you can compare the amount of trees.
And the work is going on. The number of the venues is just about completion. We can see at some of them. And given the Moscow experience, now we engage on the federal level. How can we take the Moscow standards and apply them elsewhere? Now we're approving the standards for the integrated territory development for Russian cities. It can be discussed next year. The document is quite big, but still, it will enable us not to build square feet or meters, but to build the environment, this new high-quality living that we've been discussing. The key public spaces in 40 cities of Russia. And the previous session devoted to the World Soccer Cup, a huge number of cities is a part of this program. And here I would like to draw a parallel. Now you can see the slides. This is Ivanovo city. And this is how things are in Ivanovo. This is what we're offering to do. Like in Moscow, we are proposing to improve the key public spaces, to create this new quality where the new city dweller can vote with their feet. They can come to the street and they can feel the difference. And then you don't want to stay in just one location. You want to turn your city like that. Now it's a city of Voronezh, Sovietskaya Square, left what was before, on the right what we're planning to do, and we are in construction stage. This year Voronezh has launched this construction site. It'll be one of the key squares of the city. Now the Orenburg. Beautiful, terrific embankment on the city, but quite neglected, a little bit dull and forgotten. We had to clean it up. We had to put some polish in it, and there is a children's railroad. And in the project, we also been working with some architects. We thought about how can we restore, give it its historic look, and the city dwellers really took a very positive note of it. Everybody is expecting. Now we want to do a good job in construction. On this slide, you can see the city of Krasnoyarsk, the central embankment, amazing, one of the most beautiful among the Russian regions. Outstanding Soviet heritage in the best sense of the word. Very good project, and throughout many years it has degraded. And now these embankments will get totally new colors, and the whole city is waiting for that. And this is how. I guess this is it. And this is how we ensure this movement. We do this movement, which is finding the new breath in the regions. Alexandra, thank you very much. Could you please tell me, now you're making these designs in Moscow and in the regions, do you see the big difference between the cities? Well, in terms of design, the difference is not that big. And now it's a question that usually tied up with the budget. The main principle, and we begin to speak about standards, the main principle of design, and we have come to this principle when developing the standards for the Moscow streets improvement. Number one is safety. You cannot argue with that. Irrespective of the budget, you have to ensure the safety. Secondly is a comfort. It's also self-evident because it has to be comfortable by definition, be it in the village or be it in the capital of the Russian Federation. And this is, of course, variety, because we do not want to walk on the same looking streets. Cities are different, they have a totally different look about them. And it's about the variety of functions on streets and squares. Different life scenarios, to add the new scenarios for new outdoor activities. And this is really correlating with another principle, which is identical, to be finding identity. And in our standards, it is very important to hold on to the principle of economic viability. What has been mentioned, that in Moscow we were able to attain very good economic indicators, but also to emphasize the identity of each street and each city. We may not afford to lose it, and the standards will only help us to boost these things to a higher level. Thank you. Thank you, Alexandra. And now, Natalia Fishman. In spite of the fact that she is in charge of all the young architects, Natalia, when it comes to landscaping, improving the quality, she is very experienced. She's been working in Strelka Design Bureau. Used to cooperate, used to work for Sergei Kapkov, and now she is the #1 person in Tatarstan when it comes to improving cityscape. No, the main person for the cityscape is Rustam Mininhanov, who is the president of the Republic of Tatarstan. Please do not put me on a tight spot. Well, you're the second person in Republic of Tatarstan ensuring cityscape improvement. Could you please share about this experience and to tell us what can you learn from Moscow and what can we learn from Tatarstan? Alexei, thank you very much. And this is how I wanted to begin my presentation and say that that I have some Moscow experience in my bones. I was lucky enough to work in the Strelka Institute, and in the last 3 years I moved over to Tatarstan. Okay, this is my presentation. To kick it off and to motivate and to explain my presence in such a highly respected panel, I would like to show you the numbers of what has been done. 189 implemented projects in many municipalities in the Republic of Tatarstan. We are coming to every existing regions of the Republic. It's an important number. And what Andrei has been saying, that about 3 billion rubles will be Republican investments, and only 2.5 billion rubles would be the contributions by Tatar business, which is a very important indicators. Yeah, Peter is unparalleled, so I'm just skipping over this slide. I mean, he is the best. I cannot outdo him. And now what I was supposed to be speaking about. I guess my presentation will be perceived like as an odd. But given the stage of professional development in the industries, I do not quite believe in standards, because you have to be able to read and interpret the standard. We don't have that many high-quality architects. We do not have enough designers in the regions. I'm not speaking about the Republic of Tatarstan. In 16 or 18 universities. In Samara we have university, architecture university, which is actually closing down. I think our main focus should be that, and it's important to ask, we have to identify what the city improving project is, because we do not have a legal definition. Secondly, we need to invest in building professionals who will be tackling these challenges. Alexander was absolutely right. We need to think about identity. You cannot define identity in any standards. And identity is shaped up by an architect who's working on a project. You cannot rule this out. So main thing that we have to invest in right now is building professionals and enabling the existing professionals to get real experience. Because people who are talented, they cannot get an order because they do not have an experience, and it's a catch-22. How can you get experience if all the orders are going to the market leaders? I'm done with the young architects. Could you please react to this? Can I please comment your statement on the standards? I remember the Pushkin. He said the genius is friend with paradoxes. On one hand, you're saying we do not have enough architects, and the professional level leaves much to be desired. But on the other hand, you are saying that they do not need catalogs of solutions and prefab and what basically constitutes as standards. Natalia, no, Alexei, you have to know how to use these catalogs and libraries. Well, it's easier to learn how to use standards than trying to do something from scratch in greenfield. So maybe let's delay this issue and listen to our colleagues from other regions, what they have to say. And please go ahead. Well, thank you for your input, and I'm going to wrap up very fast. I just want to say that I want to say that yes, we need these standardized units, and actually this is what we do. But the goal is that the people who are getting opportunity to make in these kind of projects, they have to be able to take this knowledge and use it. I think our key experience is that we are enhancing our professional community. We have the architectural team, like you see on the slide. Yesterday we've gotten our first architectural awards for 2 venues in Tatarstan, and we believe that our key goal is to collect younger people and to share our experience with them so that they would be able to do that. Alexei, I'm going to take a little bit more time, but I will finish very fast. These are our priorities to develop local production sites, because we may end up in a situation when everybody's working in the regions, but or like Peter was speaking about the economic factors, money have to stay in the regions. We have to build economies. In our village Musliumova, 7,500 of people, we have these kind of lamp stands and lamp supports. Now about discussions. the Ministry of Construction, and we have developed the model of how we can do the discussion, public discussions. And like Andrei has mentioned, not only formally we have to do all the public hearings, but we also have to see a project to the people and getting their approval before we do it. This is how we move for every project. Next, there are things that we have to keep in mind. Outdoor lighting, illumination, the winters are long, it's very cold. It's important to make it good. Landscaping solution, all the landscapings, all the professionals in landscaping have been working on private orders. We didn't have a good environment. Yes, we have the high-grade professionals, but there are very few. Business should be involved in projects, because if you'll just, provide utilities, they can spend all the buildings spend all the money on the buildings, but they need help with utilities. You have to plan your events well beforehand, so that all of the infrastructure would be provided. And a couple of examples. It's important for us to tell you that for us, and also in Moscow, we do not have like priority territories and lower priority. We do not distinguish between the priorities. 3,500 people, we will build an embankment looking like that. 7,000 people will get the children's playground like that, because they found some rhinos bones or something. Now, this picture is 20,000 people. There is an artificial pond which has been dug in 2 months so that people would have a place to swim in it. And this is how we're working with the Strelka KB, or Design Institute, to make designs for outdoor spaces, and looking forward to the World Soccer Cup. This is how the embankment has been implemented. Quite a big river shore. And to put it short, I would like to say the following. It appears to me that the two keys that have to be happening right now: first, education and training professionals, supporting local professionals, so that they would not to be pushed aside and driven into the corner, because oftentimes the young, if they do not have a support like by Strelka or by Andrei Chibisov, if he is not calling to the mayor of the city saying, hey, this is a talented guy, give them some space to grow, they need your assistance. It's item number one. We have to provide. Oh, why are you laughing? And the second thing that I would like to say, and it's my heart cry, we have to stimulate public, because now we're speaking about that, and the president is saying we have to do that. If we will simulate public opinions and public speaking, we can do it on a higher quality. People will not come, will not believe. So please, under no circumstances, don't do that, because instead of building trust, you may irreversibly destroy it. Thank you very much. Natalia, where are these methodological recommendations? When can we read them? Not to simulate public hearings, but to do them, actually. Andrei, the floor is yours. I wanted to comment to what you're saying. It is important, because just before to launch something, to have some guidelines, we have been working a lot with our colleagues from Tatarstan, with Natalia and her team, because the discussion was in these municipalities, sometimes very small municipalities, and we have approved the whole package of methodology, all the way from programs to the technology. There are several technologies, the public hearings, and also, some recommendations. We have sent it to all the regions, and it was actually the decree of the chair of the Russian government. By the way, all the international experts, when we looked through these documents, we had a lot of discussions. They said that yes, you are taking in best practices and the best cases, and next year we are going to take a closer look of how this methodology will be pursued, this or any other methodology. But as for public hearing, they are important. If I may, I would like to explain why, but be very brief, please. because our government officials, they have a lot of work. They're getting ready the city for the winter, cleaning up streets and washing streets. All this public hearing for them is not of high importance. It's like a check mark. To put a check mark, it's a very dangerous approach. Why? The president is paying attention to that. Why? It's a pivotal aspect of any project, because a city, or when we speak about how to change a city, it is not up to a mayor to decide. Or, of course, he or she will also make a decision, but it should be a discussion with people who live in the area. They have to go out of their shell, out of their shell where they're used to criticize. They have to say, we want this. Of course, you have to give them some options, but they have to feel that they are people who are making decisions or have a bearing, have a say in this decision-making process. It is only a social, but it's also a political issue. It's their city and their yard and their building. We can see a lot of situations when a certain yard in a certain city, somebody came and they put the children's playground, for example. Great, except it's gone after 6 months. It's completely broken because people do not consider this playground as something of their own, that they have invested, that they've been part of the decision-making process. And I fully support Natalia in this issue. All who are responsible. It's very dangerous to simulate public hearing and public discussion. It's a trap. It will backfire on you later on. And of course, people have different takes, and the authorities are making decisions, but you have to go through procedures, number one. Number two, young and talented professionals are important. We cannot do anything without them. It's good that we have teams in Strelka, in Tatarstan there is a different team, and these teams are appearing, and this has become popular because it was not the case before. So the minister, and he was saying, like, go and talk to young architects. It's not my thing. You just go and talk to them. And when you come to different cities and places, they say, we have this project, we have this project, we are going to the local town hall. Nobody wants us. Nobody talks to us. When launching this project, a federal level project, we have created demand for talents, for those guys who would like to change their cities. And it is of principal importance, not sometimes. Sometimes I have to call to the governor saying, why? You know what's going on? But it is of paramount importance. These young and talented guys, let's push them forward. Let's put them on the spotlight. And before that, it was like, don't come to us. We know how to build it better. We know it. Don't even mess up with us. We know what streets have to be landscaped and how. Now, slowly but surely, situation is changing. And on all levels, we have to support young talent and give them an opportunity to do what they want to do. Thank you, Andrei. When speaking about young talent, and Natalia has mentioned about Naberezhnye Chelny city, I think now we have the chief architect of the Naberezhnye Chelny project, Anton Ivanov.
And this is a person who improved the Moskva-Riva bench. So he's a kind of bridge between Moscow and Tatarstan. Let's now listen to our colleagues from different regions of the Russian Federation. And please, not more than 5 minutes. And about this year, what has happened in this year? What particularly would you remember? What were the advantages and disadvantages? Valentin Chipygin, Minister of Transport and Agriculture, Tatarstan. Saratovsky, the city of Saratov. So we started to work last year. And I would like, on behalf of our city of Saratov, thank Strelka for selecting our city as the pilot project. Speaking about feedback, when you meet different citizens and we have meetings in different formats, then you have advantages and disadvantages. So today, people prefer not the industry, but comfortable environment. they don't like the terms they used to live. So last year, we managed to improve more than 100 yards, and we also had more than 100 kids' playgrounds in these yards. We also managed to set up a pedestrian street. We had it, but it was a short one, but we increased it and prolonged it. Well, still, there were a lot of debates today. The majority of the citizens and population and people, they are thankful to us because they can walk there now. So what else did we do? Our plan was ambitious. We wanted to create as long a pedestrian area as more than 8.7 kilometers. So part of this pedestrian zone will be in the park and part on the embankment. So, and this is part of the program, which is truth, and we're really thankful to the ministry and to the Moscow being the pilot plan. So what was most important here? All the people, all the leaders of our city felt comfortable to discuss the concept. So we first shared the concept, then we had discussion, and it was a unique discussion about this pedestrian street. Everything was really business-like way. And as a result of this discussion, the project is really interesting. So this year we're going to improve more yards. We and in 14 places we'll have for improving and for improved comfortable zones of the city. So the city changes, and the people and their spirits also change. Sometimes it makes sense to make a balanced approach. So we improve the yard, and thus we need to improve communications and transport and water supply. So if we don't do it together, then unfortunately different accidents can occur. So we tried to improve some yards. It was a test or pilot plan. We started with the railway station and the square of the railway station. Unfortunately, the square was not very beautiful. The architecture and the landscape was really outdated. So we tried to fulfill a test plan. So what does it mean? We considered advice and points of view of specialists and also of the citizens. And we did it the other way around. So originally, the majority of the square was transport, was the highway. Now, 1/3 is for transport, and 2/3 are for people, and is a pedestrian area. That is why our square has become really very popular. We have more than 2,000 people weekly, and sometimes even daily. So we also made some marking and a fence to provide also safety and security. When we started, you know, the reaction was quite negative. Some citizens kept complaining, why renovation, why improvement? They couldn't find parking places. We tried to work with our citizens. We tried to explain what we're going to do. We have a website. We have a post box for mails and for letters, and the whole environment has started to change. And you know, the reaction of the citizens also has changed. So they've started to say that it is good, and the safety and security issues have also improved. What is most important for us now? Please don't take a long time, only 1 minute. Okay. For instance, and this is most important, that we have the reaction of our citizens. Some of them say that the parking place is important there, and they are lacking in it. Somebody else has a reaction that a kiosk for mass media, for newspapers, would be necessary somewhere. So, you know, we gather and collect this information, and we try to develop our city so that it is good for everyone. I think it's a good experience, but we need to communicate more, not to have too much negative reaction, but it's always good experience. I would gladly share it with you. Thank you very much. I would like to wish Saratov all the best. Thank you for your great experience. Pyotr would like to comment on what the Minister of Saratovskaya Oblast has said. Number one comment. It is not accidental that we're discussing standards here. So to approve them, we need to study this. So please study all the standards. Everything is specified there. We are a huge city, but we do not start communications or pump lines or whatever without standards. So we prepare the communication and the water and gas supply, the housing. We've done it. Then we set out and discuss the transport access to this issue. And most important thing is, my dear colleagues, until all the mayors of the city, of the oblast, of a small village, how to work in accordance to the standards, in accordance to the demands and requirements voiced by Prime Minister Medvedev or President Putin, we will not have any good result. That is why all of us need to be trained. Strelka will not cover the whole country, and this is good. It is good still that Strelka exists, being so enthusiastic and even having created standards. Let's scale them. A lot of standards are applicable to many regions. We have rural areas, and we have more remote agricultural areas, and they require different standards. So if we need 5 years to improve and to renovate the street, let us live it so that for 5 years no one would need to change anything else. Start with housing, start with communications, start with the pump lines, and if you start with decoration and then dig everything, it's bad. I would like to say a few words, sorry. All the concepts and all the projects in the city of Saratov really have part of the team young students and university graduates, and this is good that they require new experience and they can get the experience there. I would like to comment on education and experience and of how it is fulfilled in Moscow. I would like to thank Moscow how important it is and what can be done, but it's pivotal how it is done. We have a lot of works to do. And our colleagues from different regions who came to see us, we told them, come and see how it can be done. Because we have the examples. And thanks to the mayor and Piotr personally, who controls all that. You know, every night he goes to see different objects and facilities. He really takes everything under his control. Natalia, I will give you the floor, but now Sergei Brinyov, the city of Orenburg, head of the Department of City Construction and Land Development. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. 2017 has become a revolutionary year for improving the city environment. What have we done? We've started. Actually, we started in December 2016 from the bench of the Ural River. Our city is historically number 2 after St. Petersburg. And like St. Petersburg, it started as a fortress. And the planning is quite similar to St. Petersburg. So we started to work with Strelka. And we decided to develop this trend. So the embankment was a good start, and then we went on improving the central street and prolonging it. It is still our center for social and business development. We now have great results. So this is the map and the road map of the city concerning development. Sovetskaya Street is the central street, and it goes up to the railway station, the big embankment. This is how we called our embankment, our improved embankment, and this has become the basis of our traditional approaches of Orenburg, our city. Then we had some specific targets to improve the yards, so we decided to enroll in it. We have great funding, more than 100 million rubles for the first time ever. So we decided to change and to choose the university for design and architect as a platform for discussion. And quite unexpectedly, more than 1,000 people participated in discussing this project. So there were different teams of architects and also young students, also students from the Kids Design Center of Orenburg. And you know, they had brilliant ideas. It's been our first experience when we attracted and used the ideas of the citizens of the city. And for the first time ever, in accordance with the decision of the mayor, we have a project office. And this project office manages all the whole structure of renovation and improvement. So what they do is only fulfillment of this project or program, which is called Comfortable City Environment. So we went to the yards, and 80,000 people are now part of our project. These are the teams from these architecture design sessions who now manage this project. So we also have one more interesting project, the city environment. Our city is historic. We have more than 400 facilities of legacy. And you know, it needs special approach in accordance with the standards. Each city and town has its own peculiar features, and the standards should take into consideration them. We've started with the embankment, and it's a good example. we wanted to make it historically looking. We tried to use Italian Empire decoration style, and unfortunately the whole style has gone, and we are trying to imply this style now just for the historic face of the city. And Alexander from Novosibirsk, the floor is yours. Please try to be short. Novosibirsk, our city is well prepared for changes because we started doing the survey ourselves. There was a survey of 3 green zones of Novosibirsk, and as a result, we worked out a concept of the green city of green zones. Each zone had its own scenario and its own plan. Everything, again, let me remind you, was based on questionnaires, on social surveys, and working in collaboration with our people. So we started to work with Strelka. At that time, we also had some basics, and they became part of these projects. So we are starting with the embankment 2 very soon, and then we'll have a system of the embankment being connected with the 2 central streets, and I hope that this program will be fulfilled very, very soon. So everything is good, and concerning our city development, we have a great team, and we can go further. Speaking about yards, things are also very good. Novosibirsk has been part of the program for a long time. It all started with the federal program. Unfortunately, the volumes were not enough, and it covered mostly parking places, some innovations, well, maybe some kids' playgrounds somewhere, but quite typical ones. And I see it as a wrong approach. What we need today is doing something better, models for more quality social environment. What is happening today in smaller towns and in villages, where the projects on comfortable environment and yards are fulfilled? Unfortunately, the situation there is not so good due to the lack of competent, well-trained staff. That is why the municipal authorities need more support. Even some regions do not have good architects, good professionals. And this is a problem, really. So they need some different approach. So they don't just need standards, but they need more detailed standards, models, and assistance. And also, we need regulation for these standards, because everything we have today about improvement and design improvement is only 6 lines in the federal law. Alexander. Unfortunately, we don't have time for discussing this really important topic. You're right. You know, the law people say what is not prohibited is allowed. So we're trying to do it, but still we need better regulation. One more thing. I like the experience of Natalia Fishman, their Institute of Development in Tatarstan. Clear enough, we need to set up regional competence centers. And will Novosibirsk be one of it? Hopefully, yes. And that will be centers of competence, giving support to those who want to develop. Thank you very much. Evgenia, the floor is yours. Evgenia Molinets, representing VŽK, and she deals with comfortable environment, because we all speak a lot about VŽK, but we don't always know what it is. And what do you think about the Russian experience and local experience? And be short, please.
Yeah, there are many questions, and I will be very brief in my responses. So, ENG, or the Agency for Housing Mortgage Lending, we are the customer for the standards of how we should integrate to do the integrated construction. Part of these standards that we're ordering, it's about the urban improvement standard. Basically, this is what our colleagues from the Strelka Design Bureau were able to get in working at the Moscow sites, and now we do the same thing on a federal level. Our joint work with the Ministry of Construction, according to these standards, is expressed in the fact of how the cities are now doing the urban landscaping and improvement for the World Soccer Championship. And the leading companies are doing that. I could give you Saransk, I could give you a number of cities which are picking up this initiative. These are all realistic programs, and I'm hoping that this year we will be able to give you the results. And again, to support of what Natalia Fishman has just said, that the training is indeed a very important part in urbanism, in developing urbanism. So we have another joint program with the Russian Academy of Public Administration and National Economy. We are building the special department, Glazachev, with the Ministry of Construction. It's a first program which will give the benefit this year. We have to move in a two-pronged approach. First is legislative, and second one is educational. This is exactly what RANEPA, or Russian Academy of National Economy and Public Administration, is working. Speaking of Moscow and regional experience, of course, Moscow is more open for discussion. In many cities, having dealt with the work on the construction sites, we can see these aspects that sometimes the dialogue isn't that easy, because the residents of the cities are not used to dialogue, and we are talking, so we hear a lot of proposals, a lot of notions and the feedback. Now we are trying to consolidate all of that in a single solution, which is already being implemented, and today we already have the construction installation works, and until 2022, people, 40 cities will get 1,100 hectares of the improved territories. Yevgeny, I promised Natalia to give the floor very shortly. Colleagues, I do not want to be misunderstood. The standards are is a very good thing. I'm not saying that they are not needed, and God forbid that I'm trying to diminish their importance. What I'm trying to say is that you need highly qualified personnel to be able to read the standards. Otherwise, thank you very much. Now we can see that this discussion was not in vain. Peter, as the host, maybe you will say something. Thank you for the discussion and mutual understanding. What am I trying to say, dear friends? First of all, You and I have only started this work. Secondly, no standards will be able to save anyone and rescue anyone. In all the regions, we have to have an interdepartmental cooperation. And in this program, we have about 50 agencies of executive power are working with one another. I'm supervising this. Number two, do not forget that we are lacking a legislative base. You came to a city and you say all facades have to be changed, and there is an owner who just waving his hand and doing nothing. There should be a local legislation of how to have a leverage over that owner. Today we have to think about the management model of how to ensure the quality of building materials. Today we have to involve into this effort all balance holders. Who is going to provide the energy? They have to do something on the street. It's about the heat, water, public utilities, waste water disposal. They all have to be involved. Please do not think that the 25 billion Russian rubles of the federal subsidies will be enough. About twice of that amount have to be invested by the owners of the buildings and utilities. And finally, please think about what workers, what employees will be actually doing that. Where do we have professionals, masons, installers? We are lacking these working professionals. Basically, we have gathered from all over Russia people who work with granite stone. People who are quite of senior age. Look at the construction sites. Look at the construction sites in your places and in our places. Who are the workers? We can deploy a program, and 7 years later, there'll be no people to implement it. It's about the staff preparation and training. It's about the colleges and interacting with the basic enterprise. There's a whole bundle of efforts and work, and this is where we can come up with our recommendations, along with my colleague Andrei. On a federal level, we have to start thinking and working about that. It is not like here is a methodology and standards, go ahead with that. It's okay, but it's a titanic work that has to be done. The way Andrei has been doing it about the capital repairs, there are hundreds of enactments and bylaws that have to be utilized. I wish you every success. Thank you. This session is over.